Sam Luce from Redeemer Church. He is the campus pastor in Utica, New York, and I'm sure most of you know, avid blogger. He has some great, amazing blogs out there. And recently he's spoken on communicating to kids. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and see what's going on with you in New York, Sam.
We're doing good. It's sunny and it's December, so we're doing good. So as long as we can see the grass, we're all happy out here. So
I know I was saying earlier, it's kind of nice here. We actually got rain. I don't even know what that looks like hardly sometimes. I was so excited to wake up and it be cold.
I know, it's crazy. I was talking to Kenny Connolly, and he said that the last time they had rain was like in March. And we get like rain like every day. It's insane. It's crazy.
I don't know if I'd want that. But yeah. So can you give us maybe just like 3, 4, 5 quick points, something that people can take away to really improve how they communicate to kids in terms of getting the word, getting the gospel in a fun and relevant and new way?
Sure. I think first of all, it's you have to start from the right place. It has to start, like when we're communicating to kids, you have to start from your relationship with God and your love for the Bible. I think those two things are so huge, because if you don't have a genuine love for Christ and a genuine love for the Word, then you're going to miss the whole point of the gospel. What is the whole point of the gospel? And if you're trying to communicate that to kids, and that's what we're trying to do every week, is communicate the gospel to kids, is if you don't have that love for Christ and that love for His Word, then that's definitely where you have to start for sure. That's the starting point, and that's where all of our. It's not about just passing down stories or information. It's about what Christ is doing in you. It's a response of our gratefulness to Christ for what He's done for us, and that's why we're so passionate about it. It's not just storytelling. It's not just telling all these passing on information to kids. It's connecting them with the gospel, helping them to understand what Christ has done for us and what He did on the cross and what He did when He rose again, and the importance of the gospel in their everyday life. And that has to come out of who you are and your relationship with Christ. So I think that's the first thing when you communicate to kids. It can't be just a performance. It has to be based in relationship. So I think that's first. The next thing I would say is that you have to be when you're communicating to kids, you have to be bigger than life. You can't just get up there and just read something off a piece of paper. You have to have energy. You have to communicate. You have to feel stupid. If you don't feel stupid, then you're probably not being big enough and large enough and communicating to kids in a way that they can really digest it and really understand the whole scope of it. And use, that also includes using props, using visuals, using everything you can to leverage the gospel and to make it come to life to them. Because if it isn't coming to life, then you're communicating to kids that it's boring old story that's irrelevant. And so to make it come alive, what you have to do is, we're not going to ever be able to compete with Disney and Nickelodeon and all that. But what you can do is because you're a person that they know and that they know loves them, that what you say has more credibility than Mickey Mouse and all that, because even though their production value is probably way better than anything that you could do, you have relational capital that they don't have. And you have to leverage that in a way that's exciting and that's appropriate, age appropriate, and location appropriate. You know what I'm saying? And where you're at. Every kid is different. You have to, as the pastor of your church, you have to know your congregation. As the kids pastor at your church, you have to know what your kids are like. You have to know where they're at, and so that way you can communicate the gospel in a way and use examples that are appropriate from kindergarten all the way up, and bring that application home so that it sticks. And I think that's one of the big things that we really miss out on, is that we stop a little bit short in our application. Because we think through the Bible story part, but we don't think through the application part. And so what we do is we go to our go-to application points. There's a kid at the lunch table and he feels lonely. You should go sit by him. Or there's a kid at the bus stop and they're making fun of you. You should stand up for your. And so we have like these application points for every single Bible story that ever was. You know what I mean? And I think that's one thing when you're communicating to kids, you have to really think through is, how can a kindergartner apply this to their life? How can a third grader? How can a sixth grader and at the very end, bring it all back to Christ.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're elevating Christ. And I think those are some of the things that you really have to do when you're communicating to kids, is making sure that your application is that you're ultimately bringing them back to the place where you're bringing them to Christ.
Yeah.
And it's not about trying harder, be better, and all those things are great, but if it doesn't point to Christ and saying the reason why we can be better is because Christ, this is what Christ did for us, it's out of a heart of thankfulness and out of a heart of gratefulness for what He's done, then we rob the gospel of its power, because it's about us trying harder, which will never work,
Yeah.
And it's hard, because that's the easiest thing to do, is to say, do this, this, and this. Don't lie, don't do this, don't do that. It's so much easier to teach like a moralistic lesson to kids, because it's so concrete. But what will really transform them is that more difficult idea to convey to them. But when you can convey the gospel to them in concrete terms, it's totally transformative.
Yeah, it so is. I know that one thing that we've been focusing on, because I feel like teaching is a great avenue to get started. But in order to get that life application, you really need to kind of have the kids' input. There has to be that opportunity for them to really think it out and speak it out. And then with their peers, but also with, a responsible volunteer that's been, trained and knows the Word of God. And our facilities don't necessarily allow us to do like a Sunday school format. Ours is all large group. We just, we have one big giant room, and trying to break down the message in those age appropriate ways. And we've just had a lot of fun with just, hey, okay, at the very end, we just have a few quick discussion questions, and everybody sits on the floor in different circles, and the volunteers kind of grab, anywhere from 5 to 10 kids, and just have some questions and let the kids do the talking. And then just kind of guide the discussion. And that has made such a huge impact on the effectiveness of our lessons, teaching the same principles, but really giving the kids an opportunity to get involved. And then we took something really simple, and actually we totally ripped off Nickelodeon, because we were like, oh, this is such a fun idea, and we're going to go with it. And our interns, who are so young and fun, have a great time, we just basically gave them a video camera and a topic and said, go do some fun, goofy video and try and get this point across. And we show like a 3-minute clip every week. Well, then those same interns lead small groups, and it made such a fun connection for the kids. It's like all of a sudden they start looking up to those small group leaders. Yeah. Just because they did a goofy video. And it really, I mean, we don't have super fancy equipment and craziness. I mean, we've got a great editor, and he does a nice job on it, but I mean, we probably do more than we even have to. And that single element just brought some relevance to the kids. It was so much fun to see them all of a sudden go, oh, you're in that video, and then they all want to be in that person's small group, and then all of a sudden they're a mentor to them. It was the simplest thing. I love it. Yeah, that's cool.
No, that's so true. I mean, I think that's one of the things that's so easy to do now, is with like a couple $100 video camera and a Mac, you can make some amazing things. You can leverage technology, and that's really cool.
So I think that's awesome, though, what you're saying about just loving Jesus and really bring it back to that. And I think that's a really good point. Sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in the logistics of things and how we're going to format the lesson and how we're going to train the volunteers. And those things are all important. But if you really instill that love of Jesus from you down, that's going to show. And everybody's going to have more fun. And the kids are really going to get that you live it out every day.
Yeah, definitely. And I think anytime you have an opportunity, again, like in those small group settings, and it's just to point them back to Christ as the hero, and not you trying to answer the questions for them. I mean, it's like, this is what Jesus did. And I think even my own kids at home, I always try to tell them what the Bible has to say about something, so that they realize that the Bible isn't just a book full of stories. It's the basis, what we base our life on. It has the answers to everything that we face. And that if you ever have a problem, you can go to God's Word and you can find the answers to it. And it's putting the their dependence back on Christ where it needs to be, so that way when they struggle, which they all will, and I think not being afraid to tackle some of the more complicated and bigger issues. I think sometimes in kids ministry, we try to like sanitize everything so much, you know what I mean, and try to make everything happy, happy, joy, joy. And I mean, it's okay to talk about divorce because half the kids in there have faced it, or you know, their parents are fighting and you don't even know about it. And you know, it's okay to talk about those big issues, you know, about when someone dies, or you know, there's some of the big things that kids are struggling with, because I think that we feel like we have to, like, at least in a lot of churches I've been in, is that we feel like, you know, that you can't ever doubt. You know, kids can never doubt. You know, it always have to be full of faith, and you have to believe. But really, it's sometimes it's those times when you're struggling with situations, and you know, in kids' church and in your own homes, where your kids are struggling with their faith. That's the whole point of of what you're supposed to be doing as a parent and as a pastor, is to help them through those struggles that they're all going to have. You know, instead we try to like sanitize it, and it creates like this alternate universe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That has no bearing in their personal life, and that's why kids walk away from their faith, is because they don't understand the gospel.
Yeah, they just don't even think of it as being real, because, oh, well, my pastor is perfect, my parents are perfect, and so if I have an imperfect moment, there's nothing for me. And sometimes helping those kids through those imperfect moments are more important than even helping them through the, you know, I mean, you want to make sure that they know how to tithe and give and, you know, all those great things. Those are basic principles. Yep. But, you know, those will come if they rely on Jesus. And those will come if they know that Jesus is there 100% for them, no matter what they do and what they're going through.
No, totally. And then when you, like in your situation, I think a lot of churches are in the thing. I don't know if you have a large group. I don't know if that's all grades together, but I think in a lot of churches that a lot of times what we do as communicators is that we focus all of our illustrations and all of our application towards like kindergarten, first graders. And so, I mean, that's why 5th and 6th graders check out. I think it's so important that you think through each age group and you give a little bit of something. You put a little bit of something in there for every single age group. If you're communicating to a room full of kindergarten to 6th graders, you have to be thinking with the 6th grader in mind and like the 3rd grader in mind. Yeah. You know what I mean? And those are the two places whenever I'm speaking to a room of kindergarten to 6th graders, I'm always thinking about 6th graders and 3rd graders. And then, I mean, that's pretty much what you have to do. And I think the mistake that a lot of times we make is we think about 1st graders and 3rd graders. And in doing that, you lose the older kids. And in losing the older kids, you lose the room. Yeah, it's so true. You know? Well, and I think that we've really played on the fact that if we reach the 5th graders, the kindergartners will follow the 5th graders too. Like, I mean, we do have stuff for kindergarten and 1st grade, and we make sure that we do a portion of the lesson that is relevant to them, and we try to split it up. Yeah. But, I mean, if you get those 5th graders and you give them a little name badge and call them a young leader, they are on it, and they will help that kindergartner or 1st grader that's brand new to your class, or, you know, it's the principle of Jesus. It's creating disciples. No, totally. And I think that's totally is that we so often, and I don't know if it's like if it's a kids ministry thing, a church thing, or whatever, but I think that we aim way too young, you know, whenever we do anything. You know what I mean? Whenever we produce like a curriculum or we produce anything, we think that we're shooting for like preteens, and really we're aiming for the 3rd graders, you know, and so really, I mean, one of the principles that we always use is we try to think of, okay, if we're aiming for 5th and 6th graders, what would we tell a junior higher? Mm-hmm. You know, and then what would a junior higher like? Because we forget that kids really idolize the group above them. Yeah. You know, and so whenever you produce content for like a kindergartner, you want to aim for like 3rd grade and up, you know, and so anytime you can do that, I mean, that'll make your message more sticky to kids. And I think that's one of the things that Disney and Nickelodeon does really well. Unfortunately, is that, you know, you turn on their shows and they're just pumping all this stuff into 3rd graders that really, I don't want my kids to know until they're in junior high, but or later, yeah. So I mean, so I mean, I think that's one of the things we can really learn from what they're doing, is that we have to aim higher, you know, if we want to reach out all of those age groups, you know, is because they're looking for cool is always that elusive thing right in front of you, you know what I mean? Yeah. You always want, you know, it's always above you, and you're always reaching for it. So that's so true. Well, that's awesome, Sam. Do you have any other good tips for people out there that can just really help them to communicate better with kids? I think the best thing, the easiest, quickest thing that anybody can do is just to, whatever you're teaching, internalize it. Just take the lesson, look it over a few times. It's really simple. It doesn't take a lot of prep like you think it would. Just look, if you're a small group leader, look over the small group lesson. So that way, if you're communicating the Bible story, look it over so that way you don't have to put that sheet in between you and the kids, because when you do that, lose them. You totally lose them. So you can maintain that eye contact, you can maintain that voice inflection that you need, and you can be focused on hearing the Holy Spirit speak to you and communicating with the kids on a personal way. And so I think it's a really simple thing to do. And so if you're a small group leader, if you're a large group storyteller, whatever you're doing, make sure you internalize the script. And you don't have to memorize it, but just know it so well that you're not thinking about what the content is. You're thinking about how I can connect and just listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit, where He wants to take you to go, where He wants you to take it, because it might be somewhere a little bit different, than where you thought it would be. But if you're so focused on the content, you're not flexible.
No.
So.
That's so true. Well, you're getting ready to write a new blog series. Where can everybody find some more information and great tips from you?
It's samluce.com. It's SAMLUCE.com. That's my blog. So
that's easy. I like simple.
Yeah.
Nothing complicated. Well, it's been so awesome to talk to you, Sam. I really appreciate it. I know I learned something. I hope some other people are going to get some great information too. And we'll see you at Napkin in just a few months.
I'm super excited. Can't wait. I'm really, really excited to be at Napkin, and I'm honored, and I can't wait to meet everybody. And I think that's what I love most about the Napkin format is it's a little smaller, more intimate setting, so you can really talk to people and get to know people, and that's what I love. Is just is meeting new people and connecting and learning from others. So I'm really excited to come and learn.
All right, that's awesome. Thanks, Sam.
February 23rd and 24th, 2012 is Napkin, a children and family pastors and leaders conference. This is an event for your whole team that's not just about ideas, but making ideas happen. Speakers include Jim Weidman, Associate Pastor at World Christian Church and pioneer of children's ministry. Benny Perez, author, church planner, and lead pastor of the church at South Las Vegas. Dave and Becky Wakerly, children's pastors at Hillsong Sydney. Michael Rosales, Napkin Conference Director and Children's Pastor at the Church at South Las Vegas. Ryan Frank, Executive Director of Kids Matter and Awana, as well as Editor-in-Chief of K Magazine. And Sam Luce, avid blogger and children's pastor of Redeemer Church in Utica, New York. Registration is going on right now, so register your team today at thenapkinconference.com. Napkin Conference, taking your ideas off the napkin and into reality.